I don't even like your program. I don't even like writing essays. I just don't want to die hungry with cats. I just want to make money and be able to pay for rent. Is that too much to ask for? I just want my Asian parents to finally be proud of me, is what you shouldn't say when you're writing your statement of purpose. A statement of purpose is, in ways, a persuasive essay to convince admissions that your background and your achievements make you a good fit for their program. And it's usually about 2 double-spaced pages, and sometimes the prompts differ, so definitely check what the prompt is asking for and make sure you address each aspect of the prompt. So in this video, I'm going to be going over general tips for writing a powerful statement of purpose based on the information that I gathered while I was writing my own statement of purpose, the one that got me into Teachers College, Columbia University. And so this statement should essentially give you about 4 to 5 paragraphs, and you don't have to follow this exact outline, and hopefully this outline will provide a mold that will allow you to scaffold and write an essay regardless of the program that you're applying to. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So first, write a short intro about your interests and motivations for pursuing graduate school in the first place. I wrote about my experience writing essays with a psychoanalytic lens and analyzing character motivation and interests, right? And then how that sparked my how that sparked my interest in human behavior and motivation. I forgot to mention this sooner, but the program that I applied to was a mental health counseling program. So in my intro, I mentioned my journey, starting off as pre-med very briefly, and then how I switched to mental health counseling. So I talked about my journey and how I wanted to understand my culture and the impact of colonialism on it. And that kind of crystallized as a belief that cultural and historical context are inseparable from counseling itself. And then I moved on to my thesis. And your thesis should essentially be an outline for the rest of your essay, so that the reader knows what to expect. So my essay was 4 paragraphs long. I devoted 1 body paragraph to my academic experience as it related to cultural competence. And then I wrote another body paragraph about a job experience that I had and how the insight related to mental health counseling. So number 2 is to go over your previous experience. So whether that's undergrad or during an internship or working at a lab or something of that nature, and then use that experience to connect to the program that you're applying to. So connect it to the program interest or the program focus / mission. So what I did was I broke up my academic experience and into 1 paragraph, and then the other paragraph was my career experience. In my first body paragraph, I talked about how my interest in post-colonial literature was something that led me to realize that biases about culture can be really devastating. So I provided the example of how Orientalists see everything from the Arabian Peninsula all the way up to the Indian subcontinent as one homogeneous entity, and how that led to that, along with assumptions about their own superiority, led to centuries of plundering nations. So I use it as an example of something as a reminder to appreciate nuance in a macro level context, because obviously not every culture from the Arabian Peninsula to the Indian subcontinent is just one ethnic group or one cultural identity. And then I moved into the micro level context. So I talked about a story that one of my professors shared with us about how she was treating a family in which they had a daughter, and they obviously didn't like their daughter, and because they really neglected her and deprived her of her basic needs So that girl ended up developing trichotillomania. So then I talked about how easy it was for someone to become frustrated and to label this family as, you know, backwards or cruel because of what they did to their daughter. And I use this as an example to kind of show them that, you know, I can see beyond the initial reaction, the initial rage and frustration, and that I'm a more level-headed counselor. I made the point that, you know, instead of being angry at them, understanding the family dynamics or the larger culture and trying to assist the family was more important in that situation, and that collaboration rather than judgment was necessary in that situation. So again, I was basically making the point that, you know, true counseling requires you to look at the cultural context. I topped it off by saying that because of these experiences, I was eager to study in a graduate program that emphasized cultural sensitivity. And I made that point because their program kept like boasting about how culturally sensitive it was. So the formula that you can basically use is to provide one general anecdote, like one or two examples within this paragraph, and then how that relates to a quality that you're looking for in a graduate program. And you'd say that quality is something that the program that you're applying to has. So like, in my case, I was talking about cultural sensitivity, and I use my examples to support the claim that I wanted a program that focused on cultural sensitivity. So your examples should support the quality that you're looking for in your program. So in general, in this paragraph, you can use about one or two examples. It could be a specific anecdote as well, and how that leads you to desire or want a certain quality in a program, in a graduate program, and that quality would match what the program already has. So for number 3, you're going to be talking about your work or your extracurriculars, and you're going to relate that to your program. And so for this, what I did was I talked about an instance at work in which we talked about our coworkers were talking amongst ourselves about our feelings and processing them after the events, after the murder of George Floyd. So I talked about how my coworkers were trying to share something at the same time, and how them talking over one another would just drown each other out, and basically about how difficult it was to share a vulnerable, uncomfortable space, because therapy is all about difficult conversations and uncomfortable spaces. So I connected it to how my program emphasizes experiential learning, and how the process to understanding one another is uncomfortable and difficult at times, especially with charged emotions and a socio-political kind of dimension added to it. So number 4 is to tie it all together and to reiterate everything you said, but now do it more explicitly. So a model sentence that you can use is, I'm confident that my objectives align with that of the program at X university because of the emphasis on ... So I listed 2 themes and I connected it to points I made in each body paragraph. So I talked about specific bullets from the program mission, and I found that on the program website, and I rephrased them. You should totally rephrase them. And I used the official handbook, the current student handbook. Even though I wasn't going to the school, I looked at the current student handbook to get a better sense of what the program was like and to sound more knowledgeable about the program. And this paragraph was my conclusion. So I ended kind of optimistically, and it was a bit cheeky of me, but I said that I'm eager to take courses that allow me to further explore these topics. And then I listed 2 courses that they actually offered. As for general tips, I want to stress the importance of fit and match with the program. So the formula that I used constantly throughout the essay was, I provided an example and how it led me to seek a certain quality within a graduate school program. So you want to prove that you understand the scope of research or work within your discipline, and that you've already been engaging in these themes. So it might be helpful to include the research of faculty members from the university within your statement and reference how you've read it before, um, to support a point that you're already making within the essay. And this might make you sound more knowledgeable. So obviously do this appropriately, because if you just mention the name of a faculty member and you don't really know what the research is about, it can be a kiss of death if you just start talking about them and you sound it'll make you sound unknowledgeable, and it will only shoot you down, because some programs might even require that you mention a faculty member within the statement. So be well versed before you even write about that faculty member. Now, for some more general tips, I would highly recommend starting early, because the amount of time that you give yourself can be a really big advantage. Because if you start early, then you have more time to think, you have more time to write, you have more time to edit, and as that process goes on, your writing and your thinking becomes more refined and and you sound a lot more articulate, because you've thought about the same sentence or the same thought so many times that you found a concise and a better way to say it than the first time you've thought about it or written about it. So essentially, you'll find better ways to say the same thing, or you'll find better things to say. I also highly recommend that you ask an English professor or someone else who's published work, like written work. So anything in the humanities would be a good idea, with help revising your essays and editing them. So I asked my English professor to help me revise my essays, and he was super helpful. But you definitely want someone with proven publishing caliber writing to help you with yours, because if they can publish and they have the skills to write that level of work, then they'll definitely be an asset for you. One thing that will stay with me is when my English professor, the one who helped me edit my essay, once told me many years ago, like a couple of years ago, that that you shouldn't become too attached to your writing, because if you really like a paragraph or a sentence, because it has parallel structure, it sounds really nice, you use the metaphor, like it's like really great imagery, whatever the case is, if you become really attached to your writing, then you're holding yourself back from editing that paragraph or that sentence or whatever it is and making it even better. Because if you let go of what you have, then the opportunity to grow is so much more, because you'll only be holding yourself back if you become attached to what you already have. And this has worked out for me so many times. I write something and I really like it. I like the way it sounds, or whatever techniques I used. But then as I'm revising it, like, I'm hesitant to remove it. But when I do remove it, I still have that thought, I still have that idea in my mind. But by continuing to write, I just find a better way to say it, or I find that I don't actually need it in the essay, because sometimes you write something really nice, but it's not relevant to what you're writing. So that's another important thing you have. So my next tip is to be raw, honest, and confident, because these boards of admission are basically reading, hundreds, if not hundreds, basically of essays and personal statements, and that's just for this year, and they've read many in the past as well. So in order to distinguish yourself, you need to be telling a riveting, it can help to tell a riveting or emotional, honest story, because they can, they've read enough to spot like cliches or dishonest writing, right? I'm not saying they have a lie detector and they can pick out your lies, but genuine writing and honest, raw writing is definitely really powerful. And so don't be afraid to talk about slightly personal events, and this is kind of like a touchy point, because you don't want to be too personal, you don't want to get into something vulgar or unnecessary, but you want it to be personal enough so that it tells a story about you specifically, and it makes you stand out as an applicant. Because again, you want to distinguish yourself from dozens or hundreds of applicants applying for that same program. And you want to sound confident by talking about who you are or your experiences without shame. And of course, without like excessive pride either, because that's also like a kiss of death. If you think that you're better than everyone else, and then you make that clear in your writing, because these programs don't want people like that. And use an active voice when writing. Definitely check the description box below on resources on how to write with an active voice rather than a passive voice. It makes your writing sound more direct and powerful. Write and sound confident about what elements and qualities you want in the programs that you're applying to, and sound confident when you say that you're a good applicant for their program. Obviously, show more than tell, but now some of you might be thinking, well, what if I don't have something to write about? I can't think of something that relates. Chances are, if you're really interested in this field, then there's got to be something that you can write about. Chances are you do have some experiences or anecdotes or something to write about from your undergraduate experience, or your work, or your internship, or your extracurricular activities, or your volunteering or working in a lab. So key in on 2 or 3 of those events or anecdotes. I say keep the anecdotes to about like 1 or 2, but so use about 2 or 3 of these examples within your body paragraphs. So again, what can you write about? Classes you've taken, concepts that you've learned within those classes that you want to further explore in graduate school. You can even talk about jobs that you've worked, even if the focus of the job isn't directly related to graduate school. As long as that incident or that instance is related. So because my job was I was a college coach, and that doesn't directly relate to mental health counseling, but the instance I talked about did relate, right? Because the instance I talked about related to bias and the larger socio-political environment, because my program emphasizes social justice as part of their mission. And so I knew they'd appreciate that example, and I related it to the point that uncomfortable conversations help us to build rapport with other people and to understand them. So I related this example to courses that the program offered on experiential labs, which tackled difficult and inconvenient conversations, which was also like a really big program focus. And another important tip is that if you want to write better, then you need to read better writing. So you need to read more often. You need to read a lot of good writing. So what you should do is read examples of successful statements of purpose and read analyses of why those statements were successful. So and then you should try to incorporate elements of those into your own writing. Maybe you can pick up how to make better analogies, how to write better transitions, how to use imagery to your advantage, how to incorporate humor into it just ever so slightly, because these little parts that seem trivial on their own come together and make an integrated whole. And so I want to wish you guys good luck. You've got this. Everything that you want is on the other side of fear. Definitely check the description box below, because I've included examples of successful statements. I've linked them below with analyses of why they're successful, tips on how to write a statement of purpose. What is a statement of purpose? If you're still feeling lost, that is, and examples of do's and don'ts. General advice like that. So if you found this video useful, share it with your friends, give it a thumbs up, and consider subscribing, because I will be uploading content quite frequently. I hope to do it at least once a week. If there's anything specific that you guys would like to see in terms of a video relating to graduate school or psychology, feel free to let me know in the comments below. And if you didn't like this video, then tell me how I can improve. Thank you guys so much for watching right till the end. I hope to see you guys in the next one.